All right. I think
Yes.
we're on our way here. So this is the Buckley Center Gallery, and the work is now up until November 11th, and I'm very happy with having it up, and I'm very grateful to the director, Pat Bogner, who's given me shows throughout the years. Since 1985, I had a show of paintings there years ago. So this is that, and this shows you another view of the gallery. And here I am before the reception last Saturday, just kind of taking it all in. You know, putting up a show is quite involved, and I had a lot of help from a friend of mine, Greg. I'll just call him Greg G because I can't pronounce his last name. It's my husband can, but it's a long Russian name. So first off, I'd like to talk about the title of the show, which is The Sympathy of All Things. And what that makes reference to is a certain interconnectivity that exists, a mystery, a subtle mystery of interconnectivity that exists in life and with nature. And the phrase also goes back to Plotinus, who was an ancient Greek astrologer who came up with the concept of the sympathy of all things. And it's the concept that Jung looked to when he was developing synchronicity. And I feel like why it spoke to me was like during this pandemic, I've been doing a lot of Zoom and a lot of personal new moon and full moon Zooms with some women's groups that I participate in. And it seemed like that often people would have a similar feeling. It's almost as if there was a certain tone, a field, a resonance that many of us would kind of be tuning into. So that just the term really spoke to me. And I decided even before I wrote my statement that would be the name of the show. So this is the piece that I chose for the postcard. And this is the hummingbird. And the way that I work, and I'll kind of define a map of what I'm going to do. I'm going to talk about my process. I'm going to talk a little bit about inspirations, and also, I guess it also comes down, I mean, I've already touched upon that too, some of philosophies that I have in terms of where my art practice is sitting, you know, how I consider it, and what I do to get in touch with the imagery that I engage with. And I've got a couple of hummingbird feeders that are outside my porch, and I have a pair of hummingbirds that are just, they're just there. And I don't know if they're darting around in a love dance or if it's a competitive kind of thing, but I see them often. And this isn't the Anna hummingbird, but I did this eco print, and it was a sumac and maple and geranium leaves and eucalyptus, and it just was almost like near perfect. And I just put a hummingbird on it, and I really didn't change it much since that, except for amping up, like putting in some imaginary floral plants and changing the glazing in the back of the work. But I wanted to show you what the piece looked like before I put the hummingbird in. So this is a piece of the raw silk fabric that I take, and I have to put a mordant in it. And what a mordant is a bath, so that the fabric, the raw silk, will absorb the dyes from the plants, the tannins that are in the plants. And so once that's done, and actually there's some other processes, I have to scour it, which is like wash out the gummy residue from the silk, and then mordant. And then I take the fabric, and I'm placing these plants that I've collected from my yard and from my neighbors' yards and friends' yards. And I'm placing them and just kind of imagining the composition. But what happens is I have to fold the fabric up. So I'm never really clear exactly what going to happen, if it's something's going to shift, or or even if it's going to come out the way I'm imagining. So then it's rolled up into a bundle, like about this big, like this, imagine this like tube thing, and put in a pot and cooked and steamed. And I tend to steam my prints for about 3 hours, which I have a friend who's actually a master eco printer, Eileen Coffey. And she says, you don't need to do it that long, but I don't know. There's some part of me wants to make sure that I get it, I get the prints. So this is, I'm going to just shift it now and you can see how it transforms. And so there's the finished product of Hummingbird. And I love hummingbirds. I mean, hummingbirds are kind of magical creatures, and they seem to evoke for most people just good feelings, and their heart races. Actually, my heart is racing right now too, like a hummingbird, but their heart races at just in a phenomenal amount of beats per minute. And they're just amazing creatures, just so light and able to fly back and forth. And so it was easy to kind of get enchanted with using the hummingbird in this piece. This one is called Out of the Blue Seraph. And I did an eco print and I kind of went wild. I got a hold of, Gamblin has a paint that was created by an Oregon scientist, a new form of blue. It's called Oregon blue or moss blue. And I kind of went wild with the background, but I have an affinity too with thinking about angels as kind of elemental energies that even rule regular things in nature. And so I had this image on my artist notebook, and I've always loved it. And the seraph is a 6-winged angel, and it means burning one or burning serpent. And it's very close, and it has an energy of just really expressing a lot of love and burning energy. And so then you can see this is the original eco print that I made, and this print really printed the eucalyptus as that orange shape, really very vividly gave me some strong oranges. And so then I went in and I put, and then it ended up like this, but you can see I really went kind of wild with the blue. I mean, it's very moss blue, so to speak. And so this one is Seraph, Out of the Blue Seraph. And this next piece is Robin. And one of the things that I love, my husband and I, as a child, I moved a lot. My family tend to move like every couple of years. And when my husband and I moved into our home in West Lynn, I've had a chance to be here for 35 years. And there's something about like being in the same spot and having the same big cedars outside of my window, and just getting to know the daily ins and outs of the season. There's something that I love our home, and I love the nature that's around it. It's actually, the back of the house is like towards wetlands, so nobody can build, which is really kind of gives us a little cushion. And we get a lot of deer coming through, and we get a lot of robins, and robins are really sweet in that, they're often on the ground looking for worms, and especially after a rain. And why I just thought, again, I wanted to use a robin, and I divided this composition in kind of a watery area and a sky area. And you can see almost that the robin, even though it's on the earth, is looking to the heavens. So there's a bridge between thinking about, I don't know, just the synchronicities that can happen between earth and heaven, and how those can be bridged. And so this is the fabric beforehand, and you can see that in the middle there's the place where the robin is sitting on that eucalyptus kind of textured area. And this is what it turned into, which again, this one too is, there's a lot of more paint. Some of them I use less paint, and some of them I'm trying to maintain the natural beauty of the eco print but it doesn't always, sometimes I go wild, and like I got excited with that moss blue before with the serif. This one is actually one of my favorite new ones that's in the show, and it's called Water Mandala. And it speaks to the mandala, which is kind of like the circle of life, the sacred circle. And also too, one thing about me is that my background is in art therapy. And one of the things that we would use, particularly with clients, in having them feel more secure and having them more centered, is that we would have them work within a circle. And there's something very natural about the circle that is calming and unifying, and actually makes reference to kind of like the circle of life and nature. And so again, I'll show you how this one evolved. This is, I kind of like was playing around. And again, since I had to fold the fabric, I'm trying to work around a circle, like improvisation around a circle. And from there, I put in another step here. I put in some glazing just to start to create a mandala and see where I wanted to push, the color, and the end result is this one, which I'm really quite happy with. The strength of the eco prints. Again, there's I tend to use a lot of geranium leaves, eucalyptus, sumac, some maple leaves. I use oak too. Oak make for really strong prints too. This one is called Fishbowl. And one thing I've as a lover of art, one of my favorite artists is Matisse, and he uses a lot of fishbowls. So I look to his fishbowls because really I find that, in my skill of painting, or even, in drawing, I have to like look at things to kind of figure out how to place them into the composition. And this one, it seemed like a sea, like a watery, atmospheric, kind of oceanic kind of sea. And I put this solitary fish within a bowl because in essence, even during this COVID, so many of us have been experiencing being in our own realm, but yet at the same time, we can't help but be interconnected to the world. And so this little fish is, even though he's in his own little bowl and it's contained and it's very womb-like in some ways, there's an element that this one speaks to being within a container or gestating, and it looks kind of like, slightly ill-formed too. The fish does. And I use fish. I like the symbol of fish too, as a creature that is in touch with feeling and the feeling tone of a field, or of what's happening in the moment. So this is the eco print that I worked off of. And I was thinking about putting a container in there because I used a lot of vases and vessels. And then it evolved into, oh, we jumped into this next one. Well, that's okay. This is from the last show I had at Chehalem. This was one of my favorite pieces, and it was on the card there. And it's called Sophia's Garden. And what it makes reference to is a myth of alchemy, or a myth of creation. And it speaks to, in the original text, even in the Bible, there was a time where the Godhead was a male and female, and they were starting to create the earth. And Sophia, the feminine, looked down into all of what creation and all of matter, and she fell into it. And so a part of her, a spark of her, is within every piece of matter. And this piece is particularly important to me because it thinks for me, it relates to elevating nature, and again, bringing the sacred back into nature in the way that we are treating nature. And now with even what's going on in a couple of days at the UN Climate Change Conference, so much is at stake right now in terms of us looking and changing our attitude to really honor the sacred part that is us and nested within nature. And this piece also too had an evolution, because I actually did it last year. And so initially, you know, this is the print I worked off of, which I really enjoyed. It had a lot of strong iron in it, which makes for some of the blue that you see there, and different colors and very dark prints. And I put in, initially from the print, I put in a figure within a circle, in kind of a yin yang circle. And it was very stiff. And I just, during the summer that I was working on this, you know, I thought this was okay. But then, you know, like there was George Floyd killings and all of the different protests around racial inequity. I was really feeling, the sympathy of all things was affecting me. And I was really feeling compelled to change this figure and to make it feminine and make it Sophia, make it more relating to the earth. And I wanted to use an African-American woman. And you can see I just sketched it in with chalk, like a pastel chalk pencils. And she was kind of ghostly at first. And then I went back in and worked her so that with the oils to you know, refine it. And I was quite pleased with the result. And I feel like it communicates more of Sophia's garden. It speaks more about a creation and kind of the tensions of opposites, even that we're experiencing in the world, you know, the schism between, you know, the us and other, and different things. And how do we reconcile the opposites that are in our culture and within our own souls. So this one, what did I call this one? Well, gee whiz, what is I've forgotten the name of this one. Well, this one evokes for me kind of a face in nature, the moon, that it's called the mercurial moonlight. The moon almost looks like it has a face like a pumpkin, and it's kind of evoking the green man that's in nature, that, you know, you'll see a face in nature, or how we kind of an animism that occurs in nature that enlivens it. And so again, in the time frame of working on this, I was looking to a lot of ideas about alchemy, and alchemy being a process of transporting one's own soul, so that one kind of starts to remember the spark of creation, the Sophia spark in all of nature. And so I have a container in this one, which is another motif that I use a lot. And a lot of the same plants. So, you know, I've got different forms of eucalyptus in there. At the bottom, there's some eucalyptus that have these little flower-like BB things. And this one was glazed so that I'll show you. I don't think I have the original one on this one, so we're going to just have to go on from here. This one is called Healing Vessel, and again, it evokes another angel, Raphael, the angel of healing. That's his symbol. It's off to the left, that kind of like weird looking magical symbol. And it shows a bird coming out of a vessel. And I actually composed this one. I got the idea for it. I had a very close friend that was in one of my my archetypal pattern group who was dying, who was passing. And we were, you know, all like, oh, let's bring over meals and different things. And it was during the night that she actually passed that I composed this. And it was just because I felt a certain frustration and how can I really help? And so I kind of wanted this, I sublimated some of my anxiety about this process and created this bird coming out of a vessel, like the vessel is the body and the bird is being liberated and there's healing, even with death. This is another vessel. This one is called birth vessel, and it's kind of got like lightning bolts coming out of it. And again, some of my pieces have more color in them. And this one I kind of went wild with cobalt purple, and there's kind of electrical bolts coming out of the container, and the eco print itself within the container is not painted as thoroughly. I mean, it's left more raw with some amping up of the oranges, and it's a lovely piece. I enjoy this one too. I was talking to Kelly earlier, who's here, that there's certain ones that I really especially like, but actually in this body of work I like a lot of them. This one is called Aqua Vitae, which means water of life, and it looked to me like water, even though it's yellow. Some of the striations that occurred when I was rolling up the fabric to make the eco print. And again, it shifts and you get like little gaps. And so that occurred naturally. And I kept that in. And I have kind of a planetary, again, brings together the earthly realm with the plants, and also kind of a planet that's also just floating in the water. This one's called Bird Perch, and often in my work I'll have like a solitary figure, and often it's a bird that's just kind of looking and watching life, and it's kind of a bird's eye view of how each one of us has our own perspective, but at the same time we're within a field, within a collective field, and participating at the same time as being individuals. So seeing and watching is something that shows up in my work a lot. And this one is called The Birth of the World. And I think it's one of the first big pieces I did. And I actually was thinking of a Moreau painting. It's called The Birth of the World. And it's it's a gorgeous piece. It must be about 15 feet by it's gigantic. And it's basically this evocative, bold, geometric shapes emerging out of this murky mist of a glazing. And this one is nothing like it with exactly, but it does have the strong kind of shapes that Moreau uses, the moon shapes and star shapes and triangular shapes. And the fish that I put in here, I have a technique that I utilize at times when I want to transfer. I even used it in Seraph, that one with the angel in it. I'll have an image and I'll oil transfer it, which basically is a technique of taking a drawing and putting ink on one side and then using a pin to transfer it. It's almost like, transferring your drawing into another form. This one's called Dove, and this is again another one of the earlier pieces I did. And again, it's pulling on mythic roots, the dove being, like the Holy Ghost, or a symbol of peace, or something kind of luminous, just kind of coming through a scene. And it seemed like just sometimes the print itself almost seemed like, okay, it looks like something wants to kind of fly through there. So I'm often I'm participating with nature and with the images I get in kind of an active imagination. And a lot of these pieces take some time because I'll have the eco print and I have to, once I have it, I have to choose what area. I have to put it on a strata of birch boards that are cradled like a canvas kind of thing, and then cut them out and then put sizing on it, and then start to decipher, well, what do I want to put in there? Or do I want to put anything in there? Or what does this piece want? And each piece has kind of an autonomy of their own. It's like, so I'm hanging out with them in my studio, and I might have like cut out shapes that I have, like I had a shape of a, like something I did of a dove, and I stuck it in there and thought, oh, well, that looks interesting. And I'll move it around a lot, and I'll take pictures of it and see, well, what makes for the best composition? And then there's dialogue that happens within the process. It's kind of a active imagination process of creativity, and actually quite fun, but it's time consuming too. This one's called Redcrow, and I had done a painting that was just oils of a crow that was a black crow. And again, I used the image that I had from that painting and turned it into a pink crow, and did a lot of glazing with pinks. And this one is very cheerful, and he's sitting on a spiral. He's like kind of emerging. And one of the things, he looks like he's hopeful or looking for new possibilities. And I think that actually in this time that we're experiencing, actually through this pandemic, there's a lot that can emerge out of all the change that we're being asked to look to and see. This one is called The Rabbit in the Moon. And again, another myth that's used in many cultures, from American Indian, indigenous to Japanese and Chinese culture. If you look at the moon, you can see figures in it, and the Japanese spoke about, like, he's almost looked like he's churning something, like he's an alchemist of sorts of himself, turning mochi, which is a rice paste, into food. And so I actually found this image in years ago when I was in New York, in one of the museums, and I took a picture of it, and I just utilized the shape of it and put it in there. But it's also, one of the things that I live very close to a schoolyard, and there tends to be a lot of rabbits that hang out at this garden area. And so I'll see them often, and they're little brown rabbits with white cottontails. And it's just so enchanting, especially in the spring. You'll see so many of them just going through the field. And I'm very fortunate. My neighborhood is beautiful. It's close to the Willamette River. And I go out every day for a little trot, just get exercise, but also to get out in nature. And I'm quite religious about that. And so this one is kind of my homage to the rabbits that I see. And this one is a Pegasus, and this one isn't in the show. I didn't have enough space I had too much work, which, to put up all of the eco prints that I've been working for the last, 2 years. So this one is Pegasus he's kind of very unicorn-like image. And, he's got a daisy by him, which is a very symbolic, pure image. If you look up, like, what is the symbology of a daisy? It will say purity. But, he's far from pure in that, and that's why I put the snake in there, and he's got a snake-shaped tail. His birth was happened, Medusa, which is the figure in Greek mythology with the snakes for hair. And when she was killed, and her children were born, and Pegasus was one, and his name means spring. And so when he puts his hoofs down on the ground, spring will arise. So there's an element where, it's a combination of the tension of opposites between the very shadowy kind of energy of what is evoked by Medusa and a snake, and that also too that what emerges out of death is at times things that are quite beautiful, and that especially by paying attention and trusting the imagination within that. And Pegasus is definitely very an imaginative creature that evokes a lot for people. And I guess he was also a messenger for Jupiter or Zeus, and through lightning bolts. So there's like, the energy of that too within his tail there. The whole composition when I was composing it, and some of the plants I used at were oak. And I noticed that the canopy of the oak, and similarly with the global shape here, kind of reminds me of what they show you the coronavirus looks like. But it also too, when I look at the canopy of an oak tree, and there's quite a few in my neighborhood, and they'll be in kind of groves, and you'll see their canopy has just a remarkable, beautiful shape. The white oak, and white oak really print well in terms of eco prints. This one is a butterfly, and a butterfly is an image that really evokes a lot around psyche. And actually the word psyche, the root word is butterfly, or so very much psyche. And when we think about our psychology, there's an element where it's about transformation. And in this one, I again utilized the shape of a sculpture that I have in my home that was my father's. It's an iron butterfly, and I've always loved the shape, and so glad my sisters didn't want it after my father passed. So I utilized that within this, and also kind of a spiral within a mandala shape. Like, the butterfly is something that emerges from a cocoon, but also too, the spiral evokes emerging and new possibilities and growth. This one's called Fire Moon, and it's done on a different type of raw silk. It actually is a really nice texture. I can't remember the name of the silk, but the silk was gorgeous. And I only had it's a slightly smaller piece. I think it's like 24 by 18. And but the print came out wonderful. And so it was during the time we were having, it was a year ago during Labor Day, when we were having those horrible forest fires, and all of the air was coming into the Willamette Valley, and you couldn't go out. You couldn't go out. It was too harmful to breathe the air. And so I was thinking about that, and kind of in my studio. And so it ended up being kind of like the title, thus Fire Moon, on this one. This one, another one I really enjoy. I really like this one a lot. It's New Moon Seeding, and it just came together well. And again, the mandala shows up within, the upper right corner, and the prints of the geranium, which look like flowers, are just so awesome. They're just really, they came out really strong. And the oak leaves too just have like a certain atmosphere that is, it was really fun to work on this one. And I worked on it for quite some time, because I really was enjoying the composition and the prints themselves. And again, it's one of the things that I participate in, actually through all of the pandemic. I've been doing with a group of ladies that dear friends, and we meet for the new moon and for the full moon. And the new moon is a time where you're planting seeds of intention, and you're deciding what you want to see come forth for the month. And the full moon is when it comes to fruition, and the moment of kind of getting revelation around what your intentions are. So one of my influences and inspirations is astrology. And my mother was very much into astrology. And so I've been around it since I was a child. And I continue to study it because I think it's also does reflect the sympathy of all things, that as above, so below, that you can say, well, gee, how do planets, affect any one person? Well, they don't really affect it. It's almost like they're just kind of acausally reflecting the energy almost in a synchronistic pattern. And so I find a lot of hope and inspiration by looking to astrology, and even seeing, what are the signs, what is going on right now. And it can tell a lot, even too, in terms of what we're experiencing socially, politically in the world. And there are different larger patterns that relate to that. So that's something that I'm a student of also. And this is one of the first little pieces I did. It's only about a foot, just a little square, and it's kind of a primordial. It's called primordial, and it's kind of like this little tadpole Ouroboros, kind of, again, unfolding, but also unified. And this one is Serpent. And again, it's another one of the real little ones I did before I started to do the 30 by 30 and the 30 by 40. I tested and I said, well, gee, can I do this technique? Will this work if I laminate this to this? And will this work to paint on, raw silk? So, a lot of my work involves experimentation. And throughout the years, I've done things like felt making and paper making, a mate, which is like a bark paper. So I've always been attracted to using materials that are of the earth. And really, it's a way for me to commune with the earth and in some essence, feel like that I'm part of it. And I feel like, that really is something that resonates with me. So this one is called the Inner Life of Plants. And there's a lot of sumac in this one, all those little dots of black in it. And even the leaves, the main leaves that are coming into it that have wings are sumac prints that I've colored in different variety of colors too. And so it's got the egg in it, and it's got like some planetary connotations, but so much, one thing I really enjoy is like, reading about like, oh God, the Entangled, the book by Cosmos Sheldrick about the mushroom and the inner world and the secret life of trees. I just love also looking to nature, and when you look at it, it is just so fascinating and just so full of wonder that it's more amazing than any kind of, it just goes beyond it. There's a wonder that I feel within looking to nature and studying it. And so I wanted to show you that this was the sumac that I originally used for some of the first prints. And then we've been, they have the climate conference coming up, and all the weird weather we've been having between forest fires, and we had an ice storm, and it totally knocked this sumac out of, it was gone. They had to chop it down. It was just like totally gone. And one of the things that is in terms of the myth of the green man is, and it's part of the Osiris myth that is in Egypt, and it shows up in Western European, the green man, is that also it's highly regenerative, and out of death comes life. And so I thought it was dead, but then look what happened. It grew back. And I don't know much about horticulture, but I was just so pleased because, this is my neighbor's sumac plant, and I had some more sumac this last season to pick and utilize, and it came back. It's much younger, and in some ways it doesn't have the tropes, that the little berry things that it gives off. But I assume maybe it takes a little bit more time for a younger plant to start to produce those fruits. So with that, I think that I want to thank you, and I want to open it up to any questions or responses or conversations that might ensue. So you can unmute yourselves now. I think I ended the show, Rick, but I don't know what I did.
It's still going.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Oh, but where are the people? I want to see the people. Oh, there they are. Okay, great. Hey, Britt, Garley.
Yeah, you're amazing.
Thank
You are incredible, Lisa.
Thank you,
I
Britt.
love it all so much. Sophia is incredible. Absolutely incredible. It's one of my top faves.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, all of the new ones
they're
too
all
are
amazing.
so beautiful and like so luminous.
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I'm feeling good about it.
It's so cool, Lisa. It's so cool.
Well, Lisa, how do you make them, I mean, to use the word Brit just used luminous. I mean, what is that sparkly, glowy, metallic-y surface? What is that?
Well, I do. Some of them have like, I tend to use cold wax and a medium gamelin. Gamelin oil paints is what I use. So, there's layer upon layer. For instance, one of the ones that really surprises me is that mercurial moonlight that has that kind of moon that looks like a pumpkin. That one has like, I did so many layers. It was bright orange, and then there was like a layer of this, a layer of that, and that one does glow. I don't know how exactly I did it. I think it was just a matter of, there's something that happens when you glaze. You do glaze upon glaze that makes for a richer atmosphere. I think that's what you're asking about. Like,
Yeah. Well, like the butterfly too. I mean, that one seems to really glow to me as well.
I think that actually, I'm just trying to think. I think that there might be some, there is some metallic paint. I think in the butterfly itself, I might have used initially some metallic graphite. I put graphite powder in one of the first layers, I think, which is basically, you can add powdered pigments to paints too. And it tends to really intensify it, or if it's a color, but also you can add, there's certain ones, like in case graphite is like, graphite, like lead pencil, is kind of shiny too.
And then I was also wondering what, like, do you go out and with a clipper and get leaves and things you need, or do you take things off the ground? And are you really picky? Do you have to be picky about what you're selecting, or does everything work just as well as the next organic material?
What I do is I usually set up, I have to do my mordant and I have to get all set up, and usually I like to go out like the day before, so I'm ready to go, and I press things in, like imagine a pad of paper, and I'm putting the leaves within it, because they start to curl, especially the sumac curls a lot, and the geranium leaves do. So I'll go and pick them, but I'm very fussy because I can tell, like, if it's ill-formed, or there's certain leaves that look better, but also too, one thing is you can dip them in an iron bath to kind of intensify the print. So I'll put a bunch of them in these pads and have like a whole palette of them. And then I go out on my porch and I set up this big table, because it's kind of messy. And I'll just start working. And it's kind of like a marathon, the days that I do it, because it's like, I want to do the prints and, get them tied up, and then I'm going to cook. Like I usually do 4 at a time, and I got to cook them for 3 hours, and I want to have dinner at an earlier hour. So it's all like planned to the T. But in terms of picking the flowers, I usually pick them fresh, but you can use older ones that are dried. And my friend who's a master eco printer, Eileen Coffey, says that you can just revitalize them by putting them back in water or in an iron bath too. So that will work, but I tend to like to use fresh ones. And each session for each year that I've done this, I usually do it at the end of the summer, early fall. I find that the tannins are rich, but some people, I mean, I'm no real expert when it comes to eco printing. I kind of like a hybrid. artist.
Well, I don't know about that. I think you are an expert. So my favorites are the what did you call it? The Water Mandala.
Yeah.
And that one, when I was there yesterday, I mean, it didn't initially grab me, but I sat down in the chair and I just couldn't stop looking at it. And then I've always loved the pink crow and the butterfly, and of course the hummingbird, and then of course Sophia's garden. I mean, those are probably my top favorite 5. And
But what was the
they're all-
last one? What was the last one?
Sophia's garden.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I kind of like that one yesterday. I kind of was looking at it from different parts of the room. And at first I was like, I don't think it's lit well, because I was up close and it seemed different to me when I looked at it yesterday than when I saw it previously. Maybe it was better lit at the Chehalem.
Yeah, well, lighting does depend, and they had certain lighting, and they're, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. I definitely think that, like, it's funny, my house doesn't have enough wall space, but the areas that do have the spot on lighting, I mean, it's great. That's the way to go.
Well, it's amazing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mhm.
It was wonderful to hear the stories behind each of the paintings too, and what you were thinking about as you were working on them, and what was drawing you to those particular images or those different aspects. One question I had is, it seemed that you didn't used to use echo printing long ago, like 10 years ago, you weren't using it, and that it's a little more recent. And I wondered what called to you about, or what drew you into starting to incorporate it with your oil painting.
Well, I've always played with materials, and my friend, again, Eileen Coffey, who originally we used to do, well, we're part of a group called Art Safari. We get together and we share different techniques with one another, and we happen to be at the coast together. And many of us, she was doing eco printing, and she brought down some fabric and said, you guys can play with this. So, let's experiment. So I did one, and I actually turned it into a scarf because I was doing Nuno felting at the time. And so, and it had very strong iron prints on it, but it was like, I wanted to know a little bit more. I thought to myself, well, gee, wouldn't that be fun? I could turn these into canvases if I do them on some other kind of fabric. So I went down to Sitka Center on the coast again, and took a week-long workshop on eco printing. And we did it mostly on paper. We did some stuff on fabric, but I just from that, got a little more confidence in terms of, utilizing the technique for experimenting again with a new form, creating a new form of art for myself.
Yeah, it's neat. I love how you combine the two. It's really powerful.
Thank you. Thank you, Sherry.
Okay, I want to say something about I like all those things, and I've seen them before and stuff, but I want to say something about the hummingbirds that we have here. There's 5 or 6 species of hummingbirds that are around, especially in the summer, but about half of them migrate as far away as Central America. And then, they come back in the spring. And it's really noticeable, the population. Well, I have a lot of hummingbird feeders here, about 10.
Wow.
Quart size. And in the middle of summer, and when everybody's here, they can empty one of those. I mean,
Oh,
they go empty in a day or two.
wow.
They're very territorial, and if they don't want the hummingbird that they don't like, they get him to go somewhere else. And it's really interesting to watch where you have 6 spaces for the hummingbirds, that you got 6 of them feeding and about 6 or 8 of them just hovering around waiting. And I bring them in sometimes at night in the winter when it's freezing, or have one ready to put back out in the morning, that's thawed out. But I've been into the hummingbirds for a long, long time. So,
That's wonderful. What a wonderful story, Steve.
Yeah.
Steve's got a wonderful place, and he's into horticulture, so he probably has the right plants too around there.
yeah, I do have that, but I just have a good environment here. And for those that don't know it, I live by Oxbow Park. So it's east of Gresham on the Sandy River where I live. I got a view of Mount Hood. It's clearing up, and the Mount Hood is now got that little pink because the sun is dropping down on it. So,
Nice.
but thanks a lot for having us here and stuff.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you being here. It's fun to talk about my artwork, and it's fun having the work up in one space because, you know, my studio is half of a car garage. So, you know, I can't have all the work out at once. And so to see them all together, it's kind of like, you know, that this is interesting, you know, it really is very satisfying. So again, the show will be up I know it's kind of a distance for a lot of people, but it's going to be up until the 11th of November.
That'll be Veterans Day,
Oh, wow.
November 11th. Yeah.
Well, I think maybe we'll sign off here unless anyone else has any burning questions or responses. Hi, Eleanor.
No, I just wanted to say what a joy it has been to have you with me in the garden. I'm trimming raspberries and pulling out mint and listening to you talk about, you know, the butterfly and the hummingbird and the daisy. I mean, it's been fabulous, Lisa. So that idea, as you so beautifully demonstrate in your work, of how we combine life and nature and love and connection and all those things. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Eleanor is part of that new moon, full moon gathering that I have with some lovely women that I adore.
Back at you, baby. Back at you.
Hey, one more thing for me too. I should acknowledge and say hello to Rick and Carly because maybe the other people don't know, but I'm related to the family. So.
Yeah, he's my first cousin.
Yeah. So
Well,
I just
but
want to
it's-
be sure that that I recognize them and said hi and everything. So,
Well, it's the sympathy of all things.
yeah.
We're all related, right? We're
Yeah.
all
Well,
related.
that's right. But you can be. I didn't want to think I was ignoring them or something. Like that. So,
No.
Good to see you.
And it was nice to meet the other people that are here too. So, like you say, we're all connected.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and
Mm.
the daisy thing, I really loved your Pegasus with the snake. And I actually didn't know that's what daisies meant too. So I really liked I love your symbolism, like they've already talked about, and just how you explain like your just inspiration and all that. But also you just give it such a new breath of life by, you know, connecting it all for us. And that was really a joy to watch.
Well, they also change too. I mean, because they have a life of their own. So I will put one away and then take it out and go, whoa, you know, it's talking about that now. So they have a way of chattering behind my back and with me.
Well, it's kind of like life, right? It's just, you know, things evolve and change. So
Well, thank you all again for joining me. And yes, thank you.